I've done a whole bunch of videos on cheap cars that look expensive, but today we're going to look at 5 in particular for 5 different price ranges that do exactly that. 100k, 50k, 25k, 10k and 5k, all looking way more expensive than they actually are. Let's get straight into it. For our 100k car on this list, we have the Rolls-Royce Ghost, and anytime you get that Rolls-Royce badge on a car, you know it's going to be expensive. So getting such a new Rolls within our price range really hammers home that point of this car looking expensive, which becomes even more clear when you start to see some of the features this car has. Ignoring the classic option of two-tone paint on them for a moment, which is pretty rich in and of itself, the doors are super aggressive, with the coach-style rear doors in particular, which open the opposite way, cementing this car's image as one for the rich and famous. For reference, they open that way because it's easier to step out of forwards, because of course if you're rich you can't step out like a normal person. These come with a massive 6.6 litre twin turbocharged V12 engine, which makes 563 brake horsepower, the most on this list, wafting it to 60 in 4.7 seconds. Not bad for a car that weighs over 2,300 kilograms. A facelift came in 2014, offering some slight aesthetic changes, particularly around the front end, and interiors got new seats and some other slight changes too. Key options I'd look out for include the cool box, otherwise known as a fridge between the rear seats, and the Starlight headliner to put any questions about your wealth to bed. To get into one of these, you'll need to spend around 60k at the bottom end for a pre-facelift, and your 100k will easily get you a post-facelift from around 2016 with 65,000 miles on the clock. So while it does come with a Rolls-Royce badge, the BMW DNA it has actually means that a lot of parts that could go wrong won't cost you as much as you might expect to replace, as they're often interchangeable with BMW parts. The engine is under stress, so shouldn't be a major issue in and of itself if you stick to the maintenance schedule, and if anything it'll be the suspension going that will cost you any major cash. A couple of years ago I had the chance to take our £50,000 price range car out on track. It's the Ferrari California, and I stand by this being the most surprising Ferrari I've ever driven, which I appreciate is an incredibly privileged thing for me to be able to say. Quick thank you for supporting the videos and making such things possible. But the Cali was so much fun to drive, incredibly dynamic for a car with a hardtop convertible roof, giving me bags of confidence on track, and it was more comfortable than the other Ferraris I've driven too, like the 458. It's a Pininfarina design, but more importantly it was under the watch of Ken Okuyama, the man responsible for my personal favourite Ferrari, the Enzo. The Cali's design was originally planned for the Maserati Gran Turismo, but was pulled over to Ferrari to become the entry-level car for the brand. These come with a lovely engine too, a 4.3 litre V8 block which makes 483 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 3.7 seconds, making it the quickest car on the list. That's also pretty rapid for the cheap entry-level Ferrari. Even better, for a Ferrari these are quite practical. With the boot you can actually fit golf clubs in, with the middle section of the rear seats pulled down. The idea behind it was to attract a new audience of Ferrari owners, not as mental and expensive as the other front engine Ferraris, more sensible and usable than the selection of sports cars. £45,000 is around the minimum you'll find these listed for, so it'll be a high mileage one for sub 50k still. On looking through owners forums, the two main features that like to go wrong are the roof and the transmission. These problems usually stem from sensors though, rather than being mechanical and expensive, which is a bonus, but as it's a Ferrari, do expect your maintenance bills to be higher than your average car of course. We're cutting the budget in half again to look at the Aston Martin Vantage, specifically the V8 Vantage, which was a hugely successful and popular car for the brand. It was only the second Aston to reach 10,000 sales, ending up with over 20,000 V8 models in the end. The first Aston to reach that number was the DB9, and what's interesting is that DB9 and this Vantage are, I believe, the only two cars to have made it into the DB9 fridge on the old school Top Gear's cool wall. Let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. The design of these is credited to Henrik Fisker, though Ian Callum is also said to have designed it, and there are competing reports depending on where you read as to who was most responsible for the car's looks. Either way, I personally think the DB9 is better looking, but the Vantage is probably the more sensible car to own, if only because it's a slightly smaller engine. It's the same cylinders and capacity as the California, a 4.3 litre V8 block that makes 380 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 4.9 seconds, and that performance was designed to be competitive with cars like the Porsche 911. If you're driving one of these, there is no doubt you'll be looked at as if you're in a supercar. It will look at home cruising the French Riviera or Mayfair or wherever. It's just an expensive looking car. They're listed anywhere from around £22,500 normally, though you can go cheaper with higher mileage examples, and for our 25k we'll be looking at 2006 model with 50,000 miles on it. Roguely, despite what you might expect out of a cheap exotic car, these are known to be pretty reliable all in, with some owners even tracking them without major problems. That includes both gearboxes too, but owners do note some common smaller issues like the rubber edge of the thermostat coming loose, and specialists talk about these cars cars enjoying being used, so low mileage isn't necessarily a good sign. For our 10k car on this list, we have the Maserati Ghibli, which arrived to mark Maserati's return to the mid-sized luxury car market, having sacked off this area after their bi-turbo family saloons died in 1994. The idea behind this car was to help get Maserati operating in all segments of the luxury car market, though I personally don't know if they've necessarily achieved that. Yes, the Quattroporte is quite big, but it's not competing with proper big luxury cars like the Phantom or a Maybach. The Ghibli actually sits on the same basic platform as its equivalent Quattroporte, but with a shorter wheelbase. You'll probably only be getting a diesel for under 10k, which means you'll be driving a 3-litre turbocharged V6 engine, putting out 271 brake horsepower, taking it to 60 in 6.1 seconds, making it the slowest car on the list, but that doesn't take away from it looking expensive. Interestingly, that diesel was developed under a Ferrari engine specialist, Paolo Martinelli, and is based on the block that you'll find in the Jeep Grand Cherokee. That's actually been one of the main complaints with the Ghibli, that it feels cheaper than you'd like because of the amount of parts nicked from across the FCA family. That being said, despite Maserati's reputation for depreciation, these do look more exotic than you'd expect for a sub 10k car. They'll run you around our 10k limit at the bottom end, so you'll be hard pressed to find one, but as of making this video, a couple are available, with this one from 2014 with 85,000 miles on it. There were some known issues early doors with wiring, handbrakes, fuel delivery lines, and even sticking throttle pedals. Today, however, owners note potential surface rust in some places, which you should be able to clean off, but isn't really a great sign of these cars' longevity. There were also some mechanical issues on some early models that have helped cause the rapid depreciation on these. Now we have our sub 5k car for this list, and a car that I think deserves more love as it added a bit more finesse to a formula that has now become a staple in the Porsche lineup. It's the 987 Porsche Boxster, which is the second generation Boxster and one that was designed with the Carrera GT in mind, which can't be said for many other more expensive Porsches. It's also significantly cheaper than the Cayman equivalent, despite the fact that on a hot summer's day you can be cruising along with the roof down with the same basic performance as that Cayman. Yes, it's not as performant as an S model with less power, but as it's a Porsche, the brand still had to make an exciting and fun sports car with the handling dynamics that they're known for. So with that in mind, if you're not sold on badges, this might be the better value for money model. The standard Boxster comes with a 2.7 litre flat 6 engine that makes 241 brake horsepower, the least power on this list, but you'll still get to 60 in 5.9 seconds, which is plenty of performance for sub 5k. These are listed anywhere from around £3,000, and for 5k you'll get a 2005 model that's done around 90,000 miles. The RMS failure known on the 986s was mostly resolved by the 987s, though still not gone completely, and in most cases it isn't something to really worry about until you're doing another big job to the car, as the symptom is just oil leaks in most cases. IMS bearing failures were also known and were a bit more prolific, but by now I'd expect most 987s to be running a strengthened bearing. Bore scoring is the other big problem, but again it was far more common on the 3.4 litre engine you'll find in the S models than in this 2.7 litre, which really isn't known for bore scoring related issues. MAF sensors have caused some other issues, but genuinely these non-S's seem pretty reliable. So there we have it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do hit like and subscribe if you did. Thanks to the page for their support, and you guys well for watching. Click on screen to see another video on some expensive looking cheap cars.